The East region of the NCAA tournament bracket 2023. We find ourselves with quite an interesting little imbalance here, I do think. The number one seed Purdue Boilermakers are kind of cooling off at the wrong time, as are the four seed Tennessee Volunteers. They will both find themselves ripe for an upset. The Purdue Boilermakers were 4-4 heading into the Big Ten tournament. Of course, they won the Big Ten outright in the regular season, and then they played three teams of lower seeds in the Big Ten tournament en route to winning it, barely pulling it out against the 9 seed Penn State after beating, I think, 11 seed Ohio State and either 8 or 9 seed Rutgers. And Penn State was the only team that ended up making the tournament. So wasn't even a super impressive display there as they trailed in all three of those games. And although they're 7-4 now in their past 11, it's just not been good sledding for Purdue Boilermakers, who start two true freshman guards alongside Player of the Year Zach Edey. So it's going to be tough for them, I think, moving forward. As for the Tennessee Volunteers, who've struggled at times this year, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, Ziegler, their starting point guard, injured his hand a couple weeks back, and he is out for the season, and they're seeing the effects of that. They're ripe for upset as well, and that's going to be very difficult. And they're also in the same bracket as teams that are heating up: the 2 seed Marquette, the 8 seed Memphis, the 5 seed Duke. 6 seed Kentucky was a bubble team until recently. I'm not sure if they're heating up, but they aren't the dumpster fire that they were earlier in the season. So this bracket is almost guaranteed to have some surprises in it, that's for sure. So Purdue is going to play a play-in 16 here. It is going to be Texas Southern or Fahrenheit Dickinson. Texas Southern, a fourth or fifth 20-loss team in the history of the NCAA tournament, upset all the way to the conference final there for that squad in their conference tournament and managed to pull an upset. Big deal for them. First losing season for their coach, I believe, and he still manages to make it to the NCAA tournament. So big deal there for Texas Southern, but they may not make it out of the play-in game on the 15th. So they will be playing the winner of the 8-9, the Memphis Tigers, and the FAU Owls out of Conference USA. They were ranked in the AP Top 25 at one point in time. The Eagles are top 40 in offense and defense. They have a number of good metrics on both sides of the basketball. Good, effective defensive percentage as far as preventing opponents from scoring. That's what I meant. And an effective offense as well. Good shooting the 2, good shooting the 3, good preventing the opponent at shooting 2s. Just a really good basketball team there. They won Conference USA and the Conference USA tournament. They've won 7 games in a row at this point. And it's just a really good all-around basketball team. For the Memphis Tigers, Kendrick Davis is averaging almost 23 points a game, 5.7 assists, 3.7 rebounds, 2 steals. He is averaging over 3 turnovers, which is a problem. But this is a supernova scorer for the Memphis Tigers, who lost twice to Houston in their past, let's see here, about 15 games. And those were their only losses. They did have a loss to Tulane in overtime by a point just outside of that, but otherwise they've been on a roll. They finally got revenge against Houston in the American Conference tournament. Of course, they had no Sasser in that particular game, but other than that, they've been running through folks. Earlier in the season, they lost to Alabama by 3. They lost to Seton Hall by a point. This team has been in every single basketball game the entire year. 25th in offense, 35th in adjusted defense. Decent metrics on both sides of the basketball, and just a real true superstar scorer. So this should be a really good basketball game. I'm not sure if either of these teams will quite have the juice to be the team to upset Purdue. It certainly seems like it's in the cards. There's already a lot of talk about Memphis being able to beat Purdue. It's certainly possible. Purdue looks like they can be beat by anyone at this point, but this will be a good basketball game, at least in the first round. And it could be interesting in the second against the Boilermakers as well. So keep an eye on this whole bracket, really. I love the 12 seed Oral Roberts, but they've got a horrible matchup here against number 5, the Duke Blue Devils, who might be the best team in the ACC coming out after a little bit rough time to enter, you know, to enter the season in the Schreier time there after Coach K's retirement. They lost to Kansas and Purdue earlier in the season, which is not horrible in most regards. And then they had a tough season to start in the ACC conference, losing 4 of 8 games to start out there. But at this point, they won the ACC conference. Oh, ACC conference tournament. There we go. They've won 9 straight games at this particular point. Now, it is worth noting that in beating Virginia in Miami, those 2 teams, Pittsburgh as well, those are the 3 teams they beat in the tournament. Those are also 3 teams in the NCAA tournament. To end the season, they beat Notre Dame, Syracuse, Louisville, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, and NC State. Not a very interesting group of teams there, but the ACC tournament victories were certainly more impressive. They're at least a top 50 adjusted offense. They're really good offensive rebounding group. The defense is top 25, so they're certainly coming along there. Again, just a group of freshmen here, starting to get things together at the end of the year. For Oral Roberts, Max Abmas is a superstar in his own right. Over 22 points per game, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, 37% from three, 44% from the floor, 92% from the line. This team is 30-4 overall. They haven't lost to any bad basketball teams. Their quad metrics are solid, and it's just too bad that they're going to be playing a team that can just flat out beat them. If they were matched up against a St. Mary's, who is another one of the 5 seeds, maybe even Miami, San Diego State, it would have been more appealing to pick them. It's just unfortunate they're matched up against a very good, very long, very dominant Duke team that's coming on at a very good time here. This could be a very good basketball team. Certainly worth watching for what Max can offer. But Duke seems to be heating up, and this is going to be a tough matchup for them. However, Duke might have a cakewalk into the Sweet 16. They'll be playing the winner of number 4, Tennessee, and number 13, Louisville. Tennessee's metrics on the offensive end have been terrible all season. And their starting point guard is now going to be out. They're still hanging on to top 50 in offense, number 2 defense, but it's going to be very difficult. They have now lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 7-5 in their last 12, and 5-7 in their last 12. Sorry, more losses than wins, and some of them are tough, are brutal. So they're going to have a tough time moving forward. There's already some talk about Louisiana and how this could be a dangerous team to not only pull an upset, but maybe give Duke a handful as well in the next round. Louisiana is top 60 offense, at least. They've won 5 in a row now. I'm not so certain about that on the metrics that I'm looking at, but it certainly looks like Duke may have a cakewalk to the Sweet 16, as much as some folks may not want to hear that. At the 6th seed, we have the Kentucky Wildcats playing the 11th seed Providence Flyers. Seems awfully generous to give Kentucky a 6th seed. Now, there was a lot of talk about Coach Cal should be on the hot seat, should be looking at getting fired because he can't get this team around. They lost to Alabama, which was not surprising, back in January. They followed that up with a loss to South Carolina, which was really bad. And then they turned around and had a really big victory over Tennessee. And that really spurred the team to pick it up a little bit. And they went 11-5 the rest of the stretch there. Now, that didn't mean that they just steamrolled uh, inferior opponents and grabbed a couple big wins. No, actually, they had a loss to Georgia in there, who is ranked about 149th per Ken Palm right now. They had almost back to back losses to Vanderbilt. Um, they had an Arkansas win squeezed in there, but they lost to Vanderbilt in the first game of the SEC tournament and the second to last game of the regular season. And that team is now going to the NIT. So this squad can still lose to anybody. Oscar Shibwe is trying his hardest, as he has been all year, to get this team back into championship shape. He's averaging over 16 points and 13 rebounds per game. Last year's um, college basketball player of the year. The offense is top 14 right now, but this team, man, it's just can lose to anybody, quite frankly. Providence is an 11 seed out of the Big East. Um, Let me see here. I did not expect them to really be here. They're 3-8 in quad one, 3-2 in quad two. They have a quad three loss, and they've been horrific. They've lost four of their last five, including a couple of blowout losses to Seton Hall and UConn. So how this team was a surefire into the tournament, I am not real sure. They do have some decent metrics. Of course, the very competitive Big East this season. They were able to stay in with their offense, 16th per Ken Palm in adjusted efficiency. But there's not a lot of standout metrics overall for this ball club. The defense is okay, turns the ball over too much though, and just not sure how this team is going to perform. So this will be an interesting slot moving forward. The winner of this game will play the number 3 seed Kansas State, number 14 seed Montana State. Now, Kansas State has two fireball scorers here that has helped lead this basketball team to where it is this season, including the former Florida transfer, Keontae Johnson, who had a heart attack on the court back when he was at Florida a couple seasons back. He since transferred to Kansas State in Manhattan, and he's averaging 17, almost 18 points per game and 7 rebounds for this ball club. 41, almost 42% from three, almost 42% from the field. Marquez Noel is averaging almost 17 points per game and almost 8 assists and almost 35% from the field as well. Now, his field goal shooting is about 38%, which is horrific. That's part of the problem with his shooting at such a high volume for this ball club. But otherwise, Kansas State, 19th actually defensive efficiency, 52nd in offense, and they have some bad metrics there outside of just the shooting. They have a number of turnover problems there as well, and that's been really the heel for this particular team, who's had a lot of losses in the back end of the schedule. Montana State leading scorer Raquan Battle, over 17 points per game, and a solid team out of the Big Sky there. I don't think they were even the number 1 seed. I think they had to pull an upset in order to get that far. They have won a lot in the back half of the schedule, 8 in a row at this point. I believe they've lost one of their past 16 games at this particular point, but probably not a team that's going to challenge or upset Kansas State. It's not going to be a big candidate for an upset there. So it'll be interesting to see who's heading from the Sweet 16 from that little bracket there. Kentucky, Providence, Kansas State, Montana State moving forward. In the bottom half of the bracket, the 7-10 is Michigan State and USC, followed by Marquette and the Vermont Catamounts there, who are regulars in the NCAA tournament at this particular point. Marquette is obviously going to be the heavy favorite to come out of this quartet here. The three teams, I should say, Michigan State, USC, and Marquette, are all top 50 in both offensive and defensive efficiency metrics. Marquette is actually 8th in offense nationally. They're the 5th best 2-point shooting team. They're still above average in 3-point shooting, but not spectacular. The defense isn't horrific. They're pretty good at forcing turnovers as well. Not a bad ball club, and they come in white hot as well, winning their past 9 games. They have a loss to Connecticut back on February 7th, Xavier back on January 15th, and at 28-6, I mean, they have an overtime loss and a double overtime loss on the books here. So this is just a really, really white hot ball club here. Michigan State, not good in a lot of metrics, despite being top 50 in a lot of overall shooting and defense. But outside of that, they got a lot of problems. They're actually the 4th best 3-point shooting team in the country, which will keep them in a lot of games, but they're below 2-point shooting. It's not good there. And they've lost, oh man, they're 8, what are they, 8-8 in their last 16? If not below 500, that's bad. That's real bad. Including the loss to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament. Losses to Michigan, Rutgers. So just not super great for that team. USC, on the other hand, the weak Pac-12. They lost 2 of their past 3, one to Arizona State, one to Arizona State in the tournament right after beating Arizona State. And this has been a team that struggled to beat other good teams, quite frankly. They did notch 1 win over UCLA, but it's been a struggle for a good chunk of the season, and they don't have a whole lot of outstanding metrics. They do hold opponents to a low 2-point percentage, which is ironic considering Michigan State's going to try and shoot the 3 ball on them. So that should be a very interesting first round game, but Marquette clearly looks like the better squad coming out of that particular group, heading into at least the Sweet 16. So out of this bottom group, it's going to be very interesting to see who can kind of come out and win this, with presumably number 1 seed Purdue and number 4 seed Tennessee going to face some struggles. Is number 2 seed Marquette going to come out and grab the reins? Is number 3 seed Kansas State, who's had some struggles, going to come out and do it? Is number 5 Duke? Is Duke set up to make a run? Is blue blood Kentucky going to fix some of its inconsistency problems and make it through? A lot of questions here. A few hot teams, if you will, here. A few teams cooling off. A few teams with problems. This should be a very interesting bracket moving forward. Let's see. Teams that could make a run. I'm really disappointed that Oral Roberts has a tough matchup there in the first round in Louisiana. I would say that possibly, I would think anyone in the 8-9 could beat Purdue. You win at least a couple games to make it to the Sweet 16. As far as biggest upset, well, that'd probably be it. Is Purdue going down early? Louisiana over Tennessee. Tennessee, I think, can lose to anyone as well. Those would probably be the top 2 picks, and the 2 I think I'm going to stick with here. So, again, the bracket will be in the link in the description. We'll hit the last initial first thoughts on the next section of the last bracket coming up. Thank you very much.